It's March 13th, 2013, 7 o'clock p.m. The square is packed with onlookers, and millions more are tuned in around the world. Every eye and every news camera is pointed at one thing: St. Peter's Basilica. A new pope is being selected, and we're all waiting to see who the conclave will choose. I mean, my family's glued to the TV, and we're not even Catholic. Black smoke comes billowing up out of the chimney of the Sistine Chapel. No pope yet. Then, at 7:06, we see white smoke signaling that the new pope has been chosen. Shortly thereafter, Pope Francis is officially announced. That's when my dad leans in over to me and he says quietly, "This is the last pope." As it turns out, he was speaking a little tongue-in-cheek about a conspiracy theory that many people believe dealing in ancient predictions and supposedly secret Catholic knowledge. A conspiracy theory that has resurfaced in light of Pope Francis's recent health complications. Now, the main prediction comes from Nostradamus. And Nostradamus may be 500 years dead, but he's credited with predicting 9/11, the rise of Napoleon and Hitler, the Great Fire of London, and the disastrous fifth phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Given his track record, it's no wonder this French astrologist is referred to as the Prophet of Doom. So Nostradamus' prediction about the last pope supposedly prophesied the end of the world. He wrote, "Through the death of a very old pontiff, a Roman of good age will be elected. Of him it will be said that he weakens his see, but long will he sit and in biting activity." To clarify, good age in this context means older and wiser, and a see is a church. The prophet of doom then added, "In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations. And when these things are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people." The end. Now, we're going to get into several problems with reading this as prophecy, but I also just want to say that, sure, Pope Francis is fairly old at 88, but there were a lot of popes way older. Pope Agatho was literally like 107. Celestine III and Leo XIII were 93, so not exactly sure how Francis fits the bill more than these guys, but I digress. The second point of evidence people point to for this conspiracy theory is a book called Prophecy of Popes, supposedly written by a man known to Catholics as 400 years before Nostradamus. There was an Irish archbishop named Malachy. He was in pretty good standing, he knew very famous people in Catholic Church history, he lived, then he died, the end. Until, fast forward to the 16th century, around the 1590s, when a few Benedictine monks are gathered together to elect the next pope. One monk claims he was rummaging around the archives and rediscovered an ancient prophecy written by St. Malachy called the Prophecy of the Popes, which claims to list every single pope from the 12th century until the very last one before Judgment Day. This is a pretty convenient find for someone trying to elect the next leader.
Suspicious.
Coincidentally, this ancient text also mentions a future pope by the name of Peter the Roman, just like Nostradamus did a few years earlier. It actually quotes him exactly, despite claiming to be written 400 to 500 years before him.
Suspicious.
But here, people are divided. Some say that Pope Francis is the last pope, Peter the Roman, and some say it must be the pope after him. Now, it's pretty obvious that these monks in the 15th century forged this book in the 15th century, because interestingly, the descriptions of each pope are very specific for all the popes leading up to this rediscovery, and increasingly vague the farther away you get. For the most part, rather than predicting popes, it just gives brief titles for each one, like the burning fire, flower of flowers, or the glory of the olive. And then people can just kind of make sense of how each pope becomes that description. Cryptic? Yes. Gripping? Absolutely. Prophecy? I'm not so sure. There are a few reasons you can't call this a prophecy. For one, in the Bible, prophecy and prediction are mostly two different things. Prophecy just means a message from the Lord. The Lord's messengers were called prophets. So if God tells Nineveh to shape up or face destruction in 40 days, God isn't showing off how well he can predict their demise. No, he wants them to change what they're doing. And in fact, that prophecy didn't come to pass because they accepted God's correction. When parents warn their children they're headed toward discipline, they don't want their children to prove them right. Prophecy does not mean prediction. For another thing, when it comes to predictions, the Bible actually gives us rules to follow on what we should consider and what we should throw out. In Deuteronomy, we're told that if someone attempts to predict something in God's name and it doesn't come to pass, false prophecy. We're also told in Deuteronomy that if something a person predicts comes true, but they're leading you after other gods, still false prophet. So it isn't just accuracy of information we're looking for, but intention of the person delivering the information. When Nostradamus predicted that 2 metal birds would crash into a big city, people want to link it to 9/11. But he also says in that same prophecy that rivers will flow with blood and the undead will walk around the city for a time. Now, to be fair, I was only in 3rd grade, but I do not remember seeing all of that. But also, was Nostradamus trying to lead me to God, or was he trying to tout the wisdom he saw in his reading of the stars? When the prophecy of the Pope says Peter the Roman will be the final pope after an old pope dies, we need to remember that this really vague prediction was written down by people with an agenda for picking the next pope, not by people trying to point us to God. We shouldn't pay it much attention. Jesus was very clear that no one knows the day or the hour of his second coming. He instructed us to wait and watch. He also was very clear that people from that point forward would always be claiming they did know when he'd come back. He's in the desert, he's over here, I am the Christ, and that these people were to be ignored. Sure, at some point, Jesus is going to return. So if someone makes the same prediction over and over, eventually they're going to get it right. But that isn't prediction, it's guesswork. These conspiracies are fun to dig into, but if they're steering your life, you're off track. The Bible's real focus? Judgment is coming. Repent and turn to God. Anything else misses the point. Thanks for watching Magnified. If you found our content helpful, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We really appreciate your support.